I'm here with my friend Tyler Termini of Tyler Termini Photography. He's actually been visiting us periodically for a couple of years now, but this is particularly exciting to me because today he's going to actually share with us some of the tips and tricks to get really good photography of fish and coral. Is that right?
That's correct.
Awesome. So you got into tank photography because first you started as a hobbyist.
Correct.
You said you had a 10, then what, a 20, and so on?
And then 55, then you go for the 75, and then 125, and add a couple of them, and add a 220 in there.
And then you were looking at photography, or actually your mentor who got you into the hobby.
Correct.
Mo Devlin?
Correct.
I believe he photographs for Seagrass and some of the other companies.
A couple other magazines.
Oh, awesome.
Companies.
So basically he was like, hey, you're pretty good at this, you should stick with it.
Yeah.
So then you got into taking more pictures of aquariums, other people's aquariums.
At that point I was like, all right, let's see what I can do. So I've been traveling different places, and you can never get the wrong photo. You always have to try, and you'll learn something new then.
Cool. So let's take a look at the equipment you use and like how you would go about. We'll take some pictures of this tank, and people can see, what you're achieving. So what kind of equipment do you use?
I use all Canon products. Right now I have a Canon T5i with an 18 to 55 millimeter lens.
Okay, so that's actually that's the Rebel, right? So that's not like your Mark 5D or
nothing.
Okay, so that's you're one of the more basic Canons.
Yeah,
so very straightforward.
Canon, not that too pricey. It's an older model, but I mean, it gets the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same with the lens. That's an 18 to 55 millimeters. So that's a kind of your standard middle of the road zoom lens.
Yeah, it just comes with the camera. And
so basically, what you've got here is a very straightforward Canon DSLR. You've got a lens. You've got an 18 to 55 millimeter lens, which is a basic zoom lens. Nothing terribly fancy there, and you have a battery pack.
Extra battery pack to save me some room.
Makes it easier.
Yeah,
gotcha.
A lot easier.
All right, so where's the magic in terms of?
What I like is adding a little bit of white lights to the blue just to kind of bring it out so it's easier to take the photo. And another thing is the white balance. If your white balance is a little off, it could add different colors into the photo that you don't want. So therefore, I also add in sometimes a gel filter, which you can get online. They're very cheap depending on the gel filters that you get. And
a gel filter like this one, right?
Yeah, that one right there. And it filters out colors that you don't want in the photo depending on the color of the gel filter.
So LED lights are very blue even when the visual appearance is white, which will typically make most cameras or smartphone sensors show a very blue tank.
Yeah, correct.
And you can overcome that by using a gel filter and adjusting the white balance on your camera. Mm-hmm. Now, do you use one of the presets or do you do a custom white balance?
I just use auto white balance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Auto. It kind of keeps it where, because sometimes you could add a certain white balance to it and the stuff isn't there. So most of the time, if you just use auto, it's going to keep it in the spots that you want.
Okay. I found that the Canons in particular have a better auto white balance functionality than, say, Nikons. I believe Sonys are typically better. I don't know what the current generation of Nikons are like, though. So
I mean, I do agree with that. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough then.
Yeah.
It's always tough to say, though, because you never know whether the latest version or the latest generation of a company's technology is the same as the previous. But okay, so you just use the auto white balance. Sometimes you use a color filter to basically eliminate or offset the LED color. Then what else do you do?
I shoot in manual, so depending on how bright your lights are in the tank and in the room, say it's against the window or something, I usually shoot around ISO 3200 or 1600 and f-stop of 16, 17, around there. And I mean,
okay, so you shoot small aperture.
Yeah.
ISO relatively high.
You don't want to go too high though.
Too high or it gets grainy. So what you're going for there is a very fast shot.
Yeah.
Of the coral. So fast shutter speed, small aperture. And that gives you what exactly? What's the benefit to that?
Usually shooting with a high shutter speed and aperture, it kind of just freezes the action. And that's kind of what you want if you want to get a whole shot of the reef tank, is freezing the action with the fish going back and forth, or your coral polyp extension going around and everything moving in the tank pretty much.
And how do you get enough light? Is there typically enough light coming out of your light source for the tank? Or?
Usually, depending on how many lights you have in the tank, also adding in with the ISO in the light, you can vary what lighting you have if you want to make it brighter or make it darker.
Do you adjust the tank lighting at all when you're shooting, or you pretty much just compensate for it?
Yeah, pretty much most of the time.
Okay. And do you take, you were saying before about how glass is difficult to photograph. So how do you deal with that?
When you take the photo, you don't want to take it like directly straight in. What I like to do is actually put a little angle on it, just a bit angling down, because say you have a flash on, if you get angling down, the flash you won't see it in the glass. If you get it straight on, you're actually going to see the flash in a certain part of the tank or the glass that you're shooting through.
So you typically want to angle down. Do you want to come at an offset as well, or just the vertical angle?
It depends on the type of glass, that you got a bow front or just a regular tank. It depends on the tank, actually.
Gotcha. So what do you do after that in terms of photo editing? Do you do any photo editing on the images, or?
You could put them into Adobe, different Adobe things, and what
like
I do is
Lightroom
or Photoshop and different things like that. Mostly, I don't like to mess with the colors of the coral, because then that adds a whole other thing on it where you could go out and it look totally different from what you're selling. Say you're selling that coral to just posting it online, and they get that coral then, and they're like, it's not exactly what it looked like in the photo. So I just leave it as it is. You could sharpen the picture a little bit just to bring things out, just to make them pop, or adjusting the brightness and the contrast. Just a little things here and there will make it pop.
Okay, and you typically do all of your photographs of coral through the front of the glass, or from the side, or from above. You don't typically use a submersible.
No.
You just wait for the water to go perfectly still in the pictures you take.
Yes.
Got you. So one of the things I think has been most interesting watching you take pictures is actually your fish photography. And I think that's actually, you're almost a little more passionate about the fish photography, right?
Yeah, it's a different thing. I mean, I use the camera as well as a speed light, and you would turn on the speed light as long as with your camera, turn it to manual. Depending on the depth or how many speed lights you have, I usually shoot at ISO 100, so keep that on there. And then the shutter speed and the aperture, that depends on the photo, or how, like I said, how the depth of the tank. And you would just have it on top. You could put a glass there. You could hold it, put your camera on a tripod, depending on what you want. And it actually send the light down through the tank, lighting up the fish or lighting up whatever you want on it.
And because you're putting so much light in there, that allows you to shoot a very high shutter speed and a very low ISO. So what you get is that super crisp and moment in time, I think is how you described it, image of that fish. It's also so bright comparative to the background that even if you're taking that picture in the tank, it almost looks like the fish is against black.
Yeah, pretty much. To get that is you want to keep the light closer to the front of the tank and have that fish come out, wait for that shot. And as it lights up the front of the tank, it's just going to blacken out the whole background.
Gotcha. In terms of the speed light, you also you use a diffuser on it as well. Is that typically standard when you get a speed light, or?
No, you actually have to buy them separate, but all it pretty much does is, like you said, diffuses the light out further than the actual speed light does.
So less reflects off the water. You get more in the tank and on the fish. Gotcha. And the speed light is wirelessly synced to the camera so that they both fire at the same time.
That is correct. I mean, some do come with a cord that you can hook it up to, but depending on how far you want to step back from the tank or that subject, depends on if you want to put it wirelessly.
Cool. So what's your favorite fish to photograph?
That's a tough one. I mean, I've taken photos of so many fish throughout the years, but my personal favorite would be Sargassum anglerfish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just there's something about it. It's different.
Different. Cool looking.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. I mean, hopefully some people who've been watching this get some good ideas about how to improve their fish and coral photography. It's certainly something that requires practice. I know from my own experience with it that it's not easy, but some of the work you've done looks great, and I think you have there's a collection of your pictures, right, on Tyler Termini photography.
Yeah, Ecotech and all other fish shots that I have taken.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.